The Archaeological Survey of India is the premier organization for the archaeological researches and protection of the cultural heritage of the nation. It was established by Alexander Cunningham in 1861. Later, he became its first Director General. He was often called the father of Indian archaeology. Alexander Cunningham began archaeological excavations in the mid-19th century. He used the accounts left by Chinese Buddhist pilgrims to locate early settlements. These pilgrims had visited the Indian subcontinent between the 4th and 7th centuries CE. Alexander Cunningham also collected, documented and translated inscriptions found during his excavations. When he received a Harappan seal found by an Englishman, he unsuccessfully tried to place it in the time frame between the 4th and 7th centuries, which caused confusion in his mind. Thus he missed the significance of Harappa. In the early decades of the 20th century, seals were discovered at Harappa by Indian archaeologist Dayaram Sahani. Rakhaldas Banerjee also found similar seals at Mohenjo-daro, which proves all these sites are part of a single archaeological culture. After Alexander Cunningham, John Marshall became the Director General of Archaeological Survey of India. On the basis of discoveries of Dayaram Sahani and Rakhaldas Banerjee in 1924, he announced to the world the discovery of a new civilization in the Indus Valley. But he tended to excavate along regular horizontal units measured uniformly throughout the mound, ignoring the stratigraphy of the sites. Now let's have a look on the list of the Director Generals of Archaeological Survey of India. The first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India was Alexander Cunningham from 1861 to 1902. Then John Marshall 1902 to 1928. After that Harold Hargreaves 1928 to 1931. After Harold Hargreaves, the first Indian Director General of ASI was Dayaram Sahani. After Dayaram Sahani, J. F. Blackiston and K. N. Dikshit from 1935 to 1944. After that, R. E. M. Wheeler became the Director General of Archaeological Survey of India 1944 to 1948. After becoming the Director General of ASI, R.E.M. Wheeler, he recognized that it was necessary to follow the stratigraphy of the mound rather than dig mechanically along uniform horizontal lines. Bricks, Beads and Bones. The chapter is about the Harappan civilization. Then why the name of the chapter is like Bricks, Beads and Bones? The name of the chapter is very significant as it prompts us towards the motive and purpose of the chapter. Bricks are the basic units of architecture, beads represents artifact and economy of Harappan civilization, and bones denotes ancient humans and animals. This civilization is called Indus Valley Civilization as it flourished on the valley of the river Indus. But there is a tradition in archaeology that any civilization should be named after its first discovered site. So as the Harappa was the first discovered site, so this civilization is called Harappan Civilization. Archaeologists often use the term Harappan culture. What is culture in archaeology? In archaeology, culture means group of objects distinctive in style which are usually found together within a specific geographical area and specific period of time. In the case of Harappan culture, these distinctive objects includes seals, beads, weights, stone blades and even baked bricks. All these objects were found from various sites of the Harappan civilization. Now the question is, what was the time span of Harappan civilization? The civilization is dated between approximately 2600 BCE to 1900 BCE. There were early Harappan and later Harappan cultures, but our focus is only mature Harappan culture. Let's see the north-south and east-west extension of the civilization to better understand the expansion of the area. The northernmost site of Harappan civilization was Manda of Jammu and Kashmir. The southernmost site of the civilization was Daimabad of Maharashtra. Sutkagendur of Pak-Iran border was the westernmost site and Alamgirpur of UP was the easternmost site of Harappan civilization. Now we will focus on some significant sites of Harappan civilization with their location. Let's see some sites outside India. Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Kot Diji, Balakot and Pak-Iran border located Sukta-Gendur were some significant sites of Harappan civilization outside India. Let's focus on important Indian sites. Manda is located in Jammu and Kashmir. Kalibangan is in Rajasthan. Rakhigadi and Banawali are in Haryana. Dholavira, Nageshwar, Lothal and Rangpur are in Gujarat. The Harappans ate a wide range of plant and animal products. Archaeobotanists, who are specialists in ancient plant remains, have been able to reconstruct dietary practices from the finds of grains and seeds. The grains which are found from Harappan sites are wheat, barley, lentil, chickpea, sesame. Millets also found from sites in Gujarat. Very rare traces of rice also found. Processing of food required grinding equipments as well as vessels for mixing, blending and cooking. These were made of stone, metal and terracotta. Many saddle querns or grinding stones are found in Harappan sites, which are roughly made of hard, gritty igneous rocks and sandstones. Two main types of grinding stones have been found. One are those on which another smaller stone was pushed and rolled to and fro, and others with which a second stone was used as a pounder. The animal bones which found at Harappan sites are cattle, sheep, goat, buffalo and pig. Studies of archaeozoologists or zooarchaeologists says these animals were domesticated. Bones of wild species such as boar, deer and ghadial are also found. Bones of fish and fowl means domestic cock and hen are also found. Agricultural practices in Harappa. As bull is depicted in the Harappan seals and terracotta sculpture, it indicates oxen might be used for ploughing. Terracotta models of the plough have been found at sites in Cholistan, that is Pakistan bordering Thar Desert, and in Banawali, Haryana. Archaeologists have also found evidence of a plough field at Kalibangan, Rajasthan. The field had two sets of furrows at right angles to each other, this suggesting that two different crops were grown together. Most Harappan sites are located in semi-arid lands where irrigation was probably required for agriculture. Traces of canals have been found at the Harappan sites of Shortughai in Afghanistan. It is also likely that water drawn from wells was used for irrigation. Water reservoirs found in Dholavira, Gujarat may have been used to store water for irrigation. In Indus Valley Civilization, Harappa was the first site to be discovered, but it was badly destroyed by brick robbers. In contrast, Mohenjo-daro was far better preserved site. So if we study Mohenjo-daro in brief, we will understand the urban planning of Harappan civilization. To better understand the urban planning of Mohenjo-daro, we will divide the content into three sections of the settlement, drainage system and domestic architecture. Sections of settlement. Most Harappan settlements have a small high western part and a larger lower eastern section. The settlement of Mohenjo-daro also divided into two sections, one smaller but higher. Archaeologists designate this portion as a citadel. The citadel owes its height because the buildings were constructed on mud brick platforms. It was walled, which means it was physically separated from the lower town. It is on the citadel that we find evidences of structures that were probably used for special public purposes, like warehouse, great bath, which was a large rectangular tank in a courtyard surrounded by a corridor on all four sides. The other portion of the settlement, which was much larger but lower, archaeologists designate this as Lower Town. Lower Town was also walled. There were variations in sections of settlements in few cases. At sites such as Dholavira and Lothal, the entire settlement was fortified. The citadel within Lothal was not walled off but was built at a height. Drainage system. One of the most distinctive features of Harappan cities was the carefully planned drainage system. If we observe the plan of the lower town, we will notice that roads and streets were laid out along an approximate grid pattern intersecting at right angles. It seems that streets with drains were laid out first and then houses built along them. If domestic wastewater had to flow into the street drains, every house needed to have at least one well along a street, so every house was connected to the street drains. The main channels were made of bricks set in mortar and were covered with loose bricks that could be removed for cleaning. In some cases, limestone was used for the covers. House drains first emptied into a sump or cesspit into which solid matter settled while wastewater flowed out into the street drains. Very long drainage channels were provided at intervals with sumps for cleaning. The drainage system were not unique to the larger cities, but were found in smaller settlements as well. As Lothal, for example, while houses were built of mud bricks, drains were made of burnt bricks. Domestic architecture. The lower town at Mohenjo-daro provides examples of residential buildings. Many were centered on a courtyard with rooms on all sides. The courtyard also probably the center of activities such as cooking and weaving, particularly during hot and dry weather. What is also interesting is an apparent concern for privacy. There are no windows in the walls along the ground level. Besides, the main entrance does not give a direct view of the interior of the courtyard. Every house had its own bathroom paved with bricks, with drains connected through the wall to the street drains. Some houses have remains of staircases to reach a second story or the roof. Many houses had wells, often in a room that could be reached from the outside and perhaps used by passers-by. Scholars have estimated that the total number of wells in Mohenjo-daro was about 700. How do archaeologists find out socioeconomic differences in Harappan society? Archaeologists adopted two strategies to find out the socioeconomic differences in Harappan society. First strategy is study of burials. In Harappan sites, in some graves, pottery and ornaments have been found. Jewelry has been found in burials of both men and women. Archaeologists assumed that if this kind of ornaments and jewelries were buried with the dead body, that burials might be of upper class peoples and others are of ordinary peoples. The second strategy adopted by the archaeologist is study the artifact, which archaeologists further classified into two, utilitarian and luxuries. Utilitarian, objects of daily use and objects made of ordinary materials such as clay or stone come under utilitarian category. Ordinary artifacts consisted of querns, pottery, flesh rubbers and needles. Objects of luxuries were rare and made from precious, non-local materials. The technology used was advanced and complicated. Little pots of faience also were considered precious because they were difficult to make. These utilitarian and luxurious objects show the existence of social and economic variation in the Harappan society. How archaeologists identified centers of craft production? To identify centers of craft production, archaeologists usually look for four things. First one, raw material, such as stone nodules, whole shells, copper ore, etc. Second one is tools, which probably used for making the crafts. Third one is unfinished objects, and fourth one is rejects or waste material. Waste is one of the best indicators of craft work. If shell or stone is cut to make objects, then pieces of these materials will be discarded as waste at the place of production. Chanhudaro. Chanhudaro was a tiny settlement which was exclusively devoted to craft production, including bead making, shell cutting, metal working, seal making and weight making. Among these, bead making was very important. Material used to make beads. Stones like carnelian, jasper, crystal, quartz and steatite. Metals like copper, bronze and gold, and shell, faience, terracotta or burnt clay are the materials used to make beads. Some beads were made of two or more stones cemented together, some of stones with gold caps. Shapes of the beads. The shapes were numerous: disc-shaped, cylindrical, spherical, barrel-shaped, segmented, etc. Techniques for making beads. Techniques for making beads differed according to the material. Steatite, a very soft stone, was easily worked. Some beads were molded out of a paste made with steatite powder. This permitted making a variety of shapes. How the steatite microbead was made remains a puzzle for archaeologists who study ancient technology. Archaeologist experiments have revealed that the red color of carnelian was obtained by firing the yellowish raw material and beads at various stages of production. Nodules were chipped into a rough shape and then finally flaked into the final form. Grinding, polishing, and drilling completed the process. Specialized drills have been found at Chanhudaro, Lothal, and more recently at Dholavira. Nageshwar and Balakot, both the settlements are near the coast. These were specialized centers for making shell objects including bangles, ladles, and inlay. Finished products were taken to the large urban centers like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Strategies for procuring materials. A variety of materials was used for craft production. Terracotta toy models of bullock carts suggest that this was one important means of transporting goods and people across land routes. Riverine routes along the Indus and its tributaries, as well as coastal routes, were also probably used. What strategies Harappan taken for procuring raw materials? The first strategy taken by Harappans to procure raw material was they established settlements near the source of raw material, as Nageshwar and Balakot were established near the areas where shell was available. Shautugai was a best source of a very high-valued blue stone lapis lazuli. Lothal was near the source of carnelian. The second strategy was sending expeditions, such as they used to send expeditions in the Kshetri region of Rajasthan for copper and in Kollar of Karnataka, South India for gold. The third strategy was contact with distant lands. Recent archaeological finds suggest that copper was also probably brought from Oman. Chemical analysis have shown that both the Omani copper and Harappan artifacts have traces of nickel, suggesting a common origin. Also, a large Harappan jar coated with a thick layer of black clay has been found at Omani sites. In Mesopotamian texts, mention contact with regions named Dilmun, Magan, and Meluha. Dilmun was probably Bahrain, Magan perhaps a name for Oman, and Meluha possibly the Harappan region. They mention the products from Meluha: carnelian, lapis lazuli, copper, gold, and variety of woods. The Harappan seals are possibly the most distinctive artifact of the Harappan civilization. Seals were made of a stone called steatite. Harappan seals usually have a line of writing, probably containing the name and title of the owner, and motifs, generally animal motifs, conveyed a meaning to those who could not read. What was the purpose of using this kind of seals? The sealings conveyed the identity of the sender. Seals and sealings were used to facilitate long distance communication. The mouth of the bag of goods was tied up with a rope, and on the knot was affixed some wet clay on which one or more seals were pressed. Writing. Usually we found writing on Harappan seals, copper tools, terracotta tablets, rims of jars, bone rods, jewelry, and even on an ancient signboard. The script was non-alphabetical. It had many signs, somewhere between 275 to 400. It was written from right to left. Most inscriptions were short. The longest contained about 26 signs. Sometimes it contained wider space, sometimes shorter. It had no consistency. Till today, the script remains undeciphered, mean not converted into normal language to be understood. Weights. In Harappan society, exchange of goods and commodities were regulated by a precise system of weights, usually made of a stone called chert, and generally was cubical size with no marking. The lower denominations of weights were binary like 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, etc. up to 12,800, while the higher denominations followed the decimal system. The smaller weights were probably used for weighing jewelry and beads. Metal scale pans have also been found. Ancient authority. Historians suggest that there are indications of complex decisions being taken and implemented in Harappan society. The extraordinary uniformity of Harappan artifacts is found in pottery, seals, weights, and bricks. The settlements were strategically set up in specific locations for various reasons. Labor was mobilized for making bricks and also for the construction of massive walls, platform, etc. to develop the urban civilization. Some archaeologists have the opinion that Harappan society had no rulers and that everybody enjoyed equal status. Other scholars have the opinion that there was no single ruler but several. Mohenjo-daro had a separate ruler and Harappans had another. In the same way, other regions had different rulers. Some scholars argued that there was a single state, which is evident from the similarity of artifacts, the planned settlement, the standardized ratio of brick size, and the establishment of settlements near sources of raw materials. Religion. Many reconstructions of Harappan religion are made on the assumptions and archaeological interpretations. Archaeologists thought that certain objects which seemed unusual or unfamiliar may have had a religious significance. These included terracotta figurines of women heavily jeweled with elaborated headdresses. These were regarded as mother goddesses. Rare stone statuary of men seated with one hand on the knee was regarded as priest king. Other structures found in Harappan civilization like the Great Bath and fire altars found in Kalibangan and Lothal also were taken as significant for ritual practices. Mythical creatures like unicorn, figures seated cross-legged in yogic posture of Proto-Shiva were all examples of Hindu religion. End of the civilization. There is strong evidence that by 1800 BC, most of the mature Harappan sites in regions like Cholistan had been abandoned. Simultaneously, there was a growth of settlements in Gujarat, Haryana, and western Uttar Pradesh. At that time, distinctive artifacts of civilization like weights, seals, special beads, writing, long distance trade, and craft specialization disappeared. House construction technique deteriorated and large public structures were not produced. A variety of explanations were given by scholars to explain the decline of mature Harappan civilization. These reasons are climatic change, deforestation, excessive floods, shifting and drying up of rivers, overuse of the landscape, etc. Some of these reasons may be holding true for certain settlements, but they do not account for the collapse of the entire civilization. No single reason was responsible for the decline of this civilization. The civilization might be destroyed by invaders, which was proved by the bulk of bones found. It indicated a slaughter. But the skeletons found did not belong to the same period according to the George Dulles. Thus, it was not concluded in favor of a dramatic collapse. Rather, it was believed that the end of Harappan culture was a gradual process.